The oil market is experiencing perhaps the strangest and most contradictory moment in recent decades. On one hand, oil prices are rising again, tankers are lining up in queues, global media outlets are discussing the threat of strategic straits being blocked, and analysts from Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are warning about the risk of a new energy shock. Against the backdrop of instability in the Middle East, attacks on maritime infrastructure, and growing tensions around key oil supply routes, many countries have begun urgently increasing their fuel reserves. It would seem that history itself is once again dragging humanity back into the era of oil dependence. But the paradox is that this very crisis, according to a number of economists and technology analysts, could accelerate the end of the oil era. Because for the first time, the world has seen how dangerous it is to depend on a single resource that can turn into a weapon literally overnight. And while some countries are trying to keep the oil system afloat, others are already investing hundreds of billions of dollars into alternative energy, electric vehicles, next-generation nuclear technologies, and most importantly, into batteries capable of completely transforming the planet's transportation system. Today, behind the scenes of the world's largest investment funds, technology corporations, and even energy companies, the same idea is being discussed more and more often. Humanity may have already passed the peak of the oil age, but simply has not realized it yet. Yes, oil will not disappear tomorrow. Airplanes will continue flying, ships will continue sailing, and millions of gasoline-powered vehicles will remain on the roads for many years to come. But the trend itself is beginning to change. And unexpectedly, the center of this transition has become a man whom many considered a crazy dreamer just 10 years ago. Of course, this is about Elon Musk and Tesla. When Tesla first began mass-producing electric vehicles, almost every major automaker in the world mocked the company. In the early 2000s, experts insisted that electric cars would never be able to compete with gasoline-powered vehicles. The main argument was always the same: batteries were too weak, too expensive, and too inconvenient. A car could only travel a few hundred kilometers, then it needed a long recharge, and in winter, the driving range dropped sharply. For most people, it looked like a dead-end technology, but Tesla changed the perception of electric vehicles. The company proved that an electric car could be fast, technological, desirable, and even prestigious. Model S, Model 3, Cybertruck, all of these projects gradually began dismantling the oil monopoly that had been built for more than 100 years. However, according to insiders, all of this may have been only preparation for a far more ambitious project. In recent months, more and more rumors have appeared around Tesla regarding a new battery platform connected to the 4680 project. And if the information leaking from American technology publications is accurate, this is not just about improving batteries. It may involve a technology capable of permanently changing the balance between gasoline and electricity. The number 4680 has long been familiar to those who follow Tesla. Formally, it refers to the dimensions of the battery cell, 46 millimeters in diameter and 80 millimeters in length. But inside the industry, these batteries have long been called something else: the tipping point batteries, because Tesla's new strategy is being built around them. And now, according to several sources familiar with the company's suppliers, Tesla is testing the next generation of these cells internally, which could turn out to be far more powerful than anything currently available on the mass market. Some insiders claim that Tesla may have come close to creating a battery with an energy density that would allow vehicles to travel from 1,200 to nearly 1,600 kilometers on a single charge. It sounds like science fiction. For comparison, most modern electric vehicles today average around 400 to 700 kilometers of range. Even the best Tesla versions are still far from the figures now being discussed behind the scenes in Silicon Valley. But the most interesting part is not just the driving range. According to a number of analysts, Tesla is betting on several directions at once: increasing energy density, reducing production costs, and ultra-fast charging. Charging itself had been the oil industry's main weapon against electric vehicles for many years. People could accept almost everything: unusual design, the absence of engine noise, new interfaces. But they feared one thing: being left without energy in the middle of the road. The so-called range anxiety still remains the main psychological barrier for millions of buyers. And now, if the rumors about the new generation of 4680 batteries are even partially true, that fear may begin to disappear. If Tesla truly manages to reduce battery costs by at least 30 to 40%, the consequences for the global economy will be enormous, because then an electric vehicle would become cheaper than a gasoline car, not only in operation, but also in the initial purchase price. That would represent a psychological turning point. Today, many people still buy gasoline vehicles out of fear. They believe gasoline means reliability, that you can quickly fill up a tank at a gas station and continue driving. But if an electric car can travel 1,000 kilometers and recharge in just minutes, the main argument of the oil era will begin collapsing before everyone's eyes. And this is where the most interesting part begins. Because Tesla has long stopped being just an automobile company. Many analysts believe that Musk is actually building an energy empire. Electric vehicles are only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath Tesla lies a massive infrastructure of batteries, solar panels, energy storage systems, and software for managing electrical grids. While oil giants spent decades building a world around gasoline, Tesla is building a world around electricity. Against this backdrop, more and more countries are beginning to panic over their dependence on oil, especially after the latest events surrounding maritime supply routes. When the market saw how quickly a conflict in one region could trigger a global price spike, governments began dramatically accelerating investments in alternative energy. Europe is investing record sums into battery factories. China is building gigantic energy storage facilities. The United States is launching programs to support domestic battery production, and all of this is happening simultaneously. Interestingly, the oil companies themselves are also beginning to prepare for a possible turning point. According to Bloomberg and Reuters, some energy giants are already investing billions of dollars into charging infrastructure and battery production. It looks almost ironic. Companies that spent decades profiting from oil are now trying to integrate themselves into a world after oil. But why exactly did Tesla end up at the center of this transition? The answer is largely connected to Elon Musk's personality. Musk has long argued that humanity's main problem is dependence on fossil fuels, and it was not only the climate issue that concerned him. Musk repeatedly emphasized that the oil economy makes the world unstable. Any conflict can trigger an energy crisis. Any disruption of supplies can crash markets. In this sense, the electrification of transportation becomes not just a technology, but a matter of national security. According to people who worked with Tesla, Musk is literally obsessed with the idea of ultra-cheap and ultra-efficient batteries. Inside the company, batteries are called the heart of a new civilization, because without cheap energy storage, it is impossible to build either mass-market electric vehicles, solar energy systems, future robots, or even fully fledged artificial intelligence, which requires enormous amounts of electricity. That is why the 4680 project inside Tesla is considered almost sacred. The company is investing colossal resources into it. Production lines are being expanded in Texas, Nevada, and China. Equipment suppliers are operating around the clock, and real technological wars are already unfolding around new battery chemistries. Some insiders claim that Tesla is currently testing batteries with a fundamentally new cooling system and structural integration into the vehicle body. This means the battery itself becomes part of the car's structure, reducing weight while increasing strength. In simple terms, the vehicle becomes lighter, safer, and more efficient at the same time, and reducing weight directly affects driving range. Other sources discuss the possible emergence of semi-solid-state battery cells, which could become a transitional stage toward fully solid-state batteries. Many people call solid-state batteries the holy grail of the automotive industry. They are potentially safer, charge faster, and have much higher energy density. The problem is that mass production remains extremely difficult. But if Tesla has truly come closer to solving this challenge before its competitors, the consequences could be historic. This is especially painful for oil-producing countries, because if transportation gradually moves away from gasoline, demand for oil will slowly begin to decline. Not suddenly, not within a single year, but steadily. And this is already beginning to affect the strategies of the world's largest nations. Saudi Arabia is actively investing in technology and tourism. The UAE is building giant data centers and artificial intelligence infrastructure. Norway has almost completely switched to electric vehicles. China is treating electric transportation as a matter of geopolitical dominance. In reality, a new energy race is beginning right now. And in this race, the winner is not the country with more oil, but the one that controls batteries, electrical grids, and chip production. That is why Tesla creates so much nervousness within the old industry. The company has stopped being just an automaker. It has become a symbol of the transition into a new world. At the same time, it is important to understand that the gasoline era will not end tomorrow. Even the most optimistic forecasts show that oil will remain an important part of the global economy for decades. Aviation, heavy industry, and the chemical sector still cannot be fully electrified. But mass transportation may begin changing much faster than many people expect, especially if Tesla truly releases a new generation of batteries. Because then a chain reaction will begin. Other companies will be forced to catch up urgently. Battery prices will fall, charging infrastructure will expand even faster, and governments will gain a political argument for accelerating the abandonment of gasoline. According to rumors, Tesla is already discussing next-generation vehicles capable of functioning as mobile power stations. The car will become not just a means of transportation, but part of the energy grid. At night, it could power a house, and during the day, it could sell electricity back into the grid. This completely changes the very concept of the automobile. And this is where the main question emerges. Is humanity really standing on the threshold of the end of the gasoline era? Many analysts believe the answer depends specifically on batteries, not on electric vehicles themselves, but on the ability to make energy cheap, scalable, and accessible. If Tesla is the first to break through this barrier, the company could transform not only the automotive market, but the entire global economy. Interestingly, just a few years ago, such conversations sounded like science fiction. But today, the world has already seen how quickly technologies can transform entire industries. Smartphones destroyed keypad phones. Streaming destroyed the DVD market. Artificial intelligence is changing the office work industry. And now the turn may come to oil, especially against the backdrop of instability in recent years. The more crises occur around oil routes, the stronger countries want to eliminate their dependence on fuel. The irony is that the very oil crises themselves may accelerate the transition to electricity faster than any environmental policy. According to some Western analysts, if Tesla truly releases a mass-market battery with a range of around 1,200 kilometers and fast charging, the oil market could for the first time face a long-term psychological shift. People would stop perceiving gasoline as the only reliable source of mobility, and when the perception of millions of buyers changes, the entire economy changes with it. That is why there is so much noise around the 4680 project right now. It is no longer just an engineering development. It is a symbol of a possible end of an entire era, an era that lasted more than 100 years and built the modern world around oil. And perhaps the most astonishing part is that all of this began with a small company that was once considered a crazy Silicon Valley experiment. But the deeper analysts look into what is happening around Tesla and new battery technologies, the stronger the feeling becomes that the world may be underestimating the scale of future changes. Because this is no longer just about cars, it is about a complete transformation of the global energy architecture. And many signs of this process are already visible. In Washington, Brussels, and Beijing, there is increasing discussion not just about electric vehicle development, but about control over the future of electricity itself. That is why a quiet geopolitical struggle is already emerging around lithium, nickel, graphite, and rare earth metals. In essence, the world is gradually replacing one dependency with another. In the past, states fought over oil and its supply routes. Now the struggle is shifting toward batteries and the resources needed to produce them. According to several American analytical centers close to the energy sector, the Pentagon has long considered battery technology a matter of national security. And the reason is simple. The modern military of the future will also depend increasingly on electricity. Drones, autonomous systems, robotic equipment, satellite infrastructure, mobile power networks. All of this requires enormous energy storage capacity. Some military experts even argue that the new energy revolution could be more important than the emergence of the internet. Because electricity is becoming the foundation of virtually everything: transportation, communications, computing, and even artificial intelligence. That is why Tesla's project is causing such nervousness not only among car manufacturers, but also among the world's largest oil corporations. According to several insiders, after the first rumors about Tesla's new batteries emerged, some oil companies began ordering closed analytical reports on a potential decline in gasoline demand over the next 10 to 15 years. For now, these forecasts remain cautious. No one is talking about the complete disappearance of oil, but almost everyone acknowledges one thing: if batteries truly become cheap and highly efficient, the oil market could, for the first time in a century, face a long-term structural decline in consumption. A particularly alarming signal for the oil industry has been China's reaction. Chinese authorities are already investing heavily in battery production, fully aware that the future of the global economy may depend on it. In this sense, Tesla has acted as a kind of detonator. The company has shown the world that electric vehicles are not a niche product for environmental activists, but a full-scale replacement for gasoline cars. Moreover, Tesla has effectively forced the entire global automotive industry into a rapid restructuring. BMW, Mercedes, Toyota, Volkswagen, Hyundai, all of them are now investing tens of billions of dollars into electric platforms simply because otherwise they risk being left in the past. But the most interesting developments are happening behind closed doors at Tesla itself. According to people connected to the company's suppliers, Musk allegedly demands from engineers not just incremental improvements in battery performance, but a genuine technological leap. Within the project, there is discussion of so-called energy independence of the vehicle. This would mean creating a car that is no longer perceived as a constrained device, constantly dependent on recharging. Some Tesla employees allegedly even compare future batteries to the shift from feature phones to smartphones. When technology reaches a certain threshold, the market changes irreversibly. According to rumors, Tesla is also actively testing new methods of battery manufacturing. And here may lie one of the main reasons for a potential revolution, because the problem of batteries is not only chemistry, but also scaling production. Creating a powerful battery in a laboratory is one thing. Producing millions of such batteries at low cost is something entirely different. And this is exactly where many companies face major difficulties. But Tesla, according to leaks, is betting on highly automated production, where a significant part of the processes will be handled by robots and artificial intelligence systems. And here, the figure of Elon Musk comes into focus again, because Musk does not look at the world as an automotive businessman, but as a systems-level engineer. For him, Tesla is only part of a much larger future ecosystem. Electric vehicles, Optimus robots, solar panels, megapack battery stations, XAI artificial intelligence, Starlink satellite internet. All of this is gradually forming a single interconnected picture. Musk seems to be trying to build a fully autonomous technological civilization that is minimally dependent on traditional resources. Some analysts even believe that Tesla is preparing for a moment when electricity becomes the new oil of the 21st century. And if that is true, the company could find itself at the center of the largest redistribution of wealth in the last 100 years. Because the entire modern economy is built around fuel. Massive states, corporations, and financial systems have existed for decades thanks to oil. But if the main resource becomes energy stored in ultra-efficient batteries, the balance of power will begin to shift. It is especially interesting to observe how investor sentiment is changing. If just a few years ago, Wall Street viewed Tesla as an overvalued automotive company, today, many funds are beginning to see it as a future energy giant. And batteries are becoming the main argument. Because whoever controls large-scale energy storage potentially controls transportation, power grids, and a huge part of industry. Some insiders claim that Tesla is even discussing experimental next-generation charging technologies. In particular, there are rumors about ultra-powerful charging stations capable of adding hundreds of kilometers of range in just a few minutes. If such systems truly become widespread, they could completely eliminate the last psychological barrier for electric vehicle buyers. People would no longer see charging as a problem, and as a result, the traditional logic of gasoline stations would gradually lose its advantage. At the same time, Musk himself continues to make relatively cautious public statements. He understands how sensitive the topic of oil and energy is. But what is more interesting is that Tesla is increasingly expanding battery production not only for vehicles, but also for energy storage at the level of entire cities. Megapack projects are already being used to stabilize power grids in different countries. And many energy companies are beginning to realize that the future may belong not to oil, but to distributed energy storage systems. In effect, Tesla is trying to create a world where the home, the car, and the power grid operate as a single system. During the day, solar panels generate energy. Excess energy is stored in home batteries. The car charges overnight with cheap electricity, and in times of crisis, can even power an entire house. This is no longer just an automotive revolution. It is a complete transformation of the logic of energy consumption. That is why some economists call it the beginning of the post-oil era. Not because oil will disappear, but because it may no longer be the central axis of the global system. And if in the past energy crises automatically meant global chaos, in the future countries with advanced electrical infrastructure may be able to withstand such shocks much more easily. It is unclear when Tesla will be able to scale new technologies. The company itself does not always meet the timeline set by Musk, but even if the real numbers turn out to be more modest, the trend itself already looks irreversible, because humanity has, for the first time in a long time, seen a real alternative to gasoline that is no longer a compromise. In the past, an electric car meant limitations. Now it increasingly means advantages. Instant acceleration, low operating costs, minimal maintenance, over-the-air updates, and potentially massive range. If Tesla has indeed come close to creating a new generation of batteries, historians may one day mark this moment as the beginning of the end of the oil monopoly, not as a sudden collapse or disappearance of gasoline, but as a slow yet steady transition of humanity into a new energy era.